Hi, I'm Karen MacNeil. Welcome to WineSpeed's People to Know, insider interviews with the most fascinating and important people in the wine business. And today we're here with Dan Petroski, who is the winemaker at Larkmead in the Napa Valley, a very important historic estate, and the winemaker and owner of his own brand, Massican. So thank you, Dan, for being here. Now, you studied history and played, of all things, football, although you look like a football kind of guy, at Columbia. How did you get into wine?
Actually, I didn't drink wine at all for about 7 years after my freshman year. College football, first game, lost, and got a little drunk on white wine in an all-you-can-drink wine and food restaurant near college campus. So the aromas and flavors of wine made me nauseous. It was my tequila moment.
Oh my God.
So for 7 years, from being 18 years old to 25, I was not drinking wine. But as I got older, into my late 20s, and I started getting a professional career going, I was more interested in food and wine as a pursuit of my social status within my career development. And so it was really important for me to read books like yours to educate myself about wine. And I found the stories behind wine incredibly fascinating, something that I was unaware of. And that really kind of triggered more of curiosity, and then more of a kind of a pursuit towards making this my hobby. And my hobby was about reading and telling stories about wine and eating and drinking in New York City restaurants.
Now, you are not trained in terms of university education. You're essentially self-taught. What was the most challenging part of that? Maybe it was an advantage, though. What do you think?
No, the beauty of making wine and the beauty of growing grapes is that grapes are perennials. They have the same thing happens every year. We are right now starting the harvest of 2019, and the conversation I have with the harvest interns that work with me at Larkmead every day is about the fact that winemaking is about repetition. So if you're good at repetition and how repetition can train you to move, to kind of advance your understanding and advance your confidence level in wine, the world is your oyster. And you can be as creative as you want as long as you are strong in your repetitive acts of understanding Mother Nature and viticulture and vine growing and wine making. These are repetitive acts that over time will just help develop confidence, and then confidence breeds more curiosity as to how to create. So I've been very fortunate to not have a clean slate, to your point, and just build confidence through hard cellar work over time.
Yeah, and to some extent, wine itself is the ultimate teacher, right? Yeah.
No, I've had, I always aspire to the wines that I recall from drinking experiences. And as a winemaker, my goal is to achieve certain aspects of how a wine that I particularly adore or adored at one particular moment has made me feel. Can I have that achievement in my own wines that I make? And I think if I ever do achieve that, that's when I'm going to drop the mic and quit and get out.
Well, don't drop the mic. No. When I think of Larkmead and Massican, both of these are important brands, but they're very different. What makes each one distinct? And you make them both, so luckily we all have a right brain and a left brain, I guess. But what makes each one distinctive?
There's two approaches that I take towards these brands. One is that Larkmead is a Cabernet house. We pride ourselves on growing great Cabernet grapes, selling them to partner wineries, and also making our own wine. I also believe that Cabernet is one of the noble grapes that if you are going to succeed in your professional career, you need to succeed at grape varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Noir and Syrah and Chardonnay. So I do feel on a professional basis, on an arrogance basis of my own desire, that I want to be a successful Cabernet winemaker. So that is my day-to-day approach towards making wine at Larkmead, where also I'm working with one of the more historic sites in the Napa Valley.
It is.
And one of the most diverse sites in Napa Valley, so I have an incredible palette in front of me. With regards to Massican, that is all of it is pure nostalgia and romance and my own personal desirability of bringing me back to a time and place when I lived in Italy and when I worked in a vineyard and for a small family winery in Sicily, and the experiences I had with friends and the family of those friends eating and drinking on an island for a year. And so Massican to me is about Mediterranean lifestyle. It's about bringing me back in time. So I get to work, on my past with the Massican project, but I also get to work on my future career goals with the Larkmead project.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That sounds very ideal, actually. And I've heard you say before that we know that you're a real proponent of white wine, and of course Massican is entirely a white wine brand. What is it about white wine that grabs you, and why do you think it almost can have a second-class status in the United States? Why is that?
To answer the first part of the question, what grabs me, I do think that the way I like to eat, I do like to eat, I tend to find white wine to be a little bit more, food pairing friendly. It spans a range of multiple courses. Climate-wise, my nostalgia and my romance is brought back to the moment living on an island in the Mediterranean where the weather was pristine and perfect and it was a white wine climate. So I think about the aromas and flavors of that era and what I was consuming, those resonate with me. On the red wine side, I think about where they fit in the meal, where I think generally we're still a young wine growing country in America as consumers. And I think white wine was an entry to a red wine meal or a red wine concept of this meat and potato American mindset. I think we're still evolving and growing out of that, and I think we've put white wine in a place on the table that was an entree to the next course and the next glass, where I think that is going to evolve over time as we start to evolve our palates. And it's not going to take a night or a day, it's going to take a decade or two more for us to kind of look at the palate as pretty equal, as opposed to kind of conceptions on how we were brought up in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's always been troublesome to me that white wine glasses are even generally smaller than red wine glasses. You think, who was thinking when they made that decision? And no one actually knows historically why that is. I want to ask you too, though, about climate change, because I know you've been really instigating a discussion here in the Napa Valley about what the future decades might bring in terms of climate change, and that you've got people thinking about it now. Where did your impetus to begin taking a leadership role in climate change come?
I think, I'm getting a lot of flack for it, unfortunately.
Flack?
People are, I've been here for 13 years in California. And I think the best analysis is from outsiders. Outsider people coming in and taking a look at your business. That's why consulting businesses are so big in this world in corporate America. So I came from an outside perspective, and I didn't understand what it was to be a lifetime farmer, to be running an agricultural business for decades on end. But what I saw in front of me over the course of the 13 years I've been here, and I witnessed and I lived through 13 years, and I've heard from everyone say, this is not normal, this is not normal. And there comes a point when you say this is not normal for 13 years in a row, when you describe every vintage, and I can give you characteristics of every vintage that weren't normal according to the conversations I'm having with my friends, my peers, and people I work with. You have to start asking yourself, well, what is normal? And is there a normality that we should be nostalgic for, or is this a kind of an evolution? And so I'm looking at climate as not as an apocalyptic approach, which I think some people are slightly upset about with how they read my language and when I'm being interviewed with it. I'm looking at it as an evolution. What's the next phase? What's the next step that we can take? What is going to continue? Napa Valley will continue to grow great grapes. What are they? Is it Cabernet Sauvignon? If we're not asking ourselves that question today, I don't want to be asking myself that question 20 years from now as a winemaker when Cabernet isn't the optimal grape variety in Napa Valley at that time. So
sure.
I said to someone recently, I don't stop thinking. I don't settle and rest. I don't think I've made a great wine in my life. I just keep thinking of how we can get better. And maybe Tempranillo is what is going to make Napa Valley better 20 or 30 or 40 years from now.
Yeah.
When does the cycle change? Americans move so quickly.
Yeah.
We've achieved so much in viticulture and
true.
so much in winemaking with Cabernet since the 70s and 80s, let alone, the Bordelais have been doing it since the 1800s. And we've probably achieved more. So what's the next turn of the dial? It's a simple question to ask, and I know it might not be the best question for business folk, but that rely on Cabernet or even just the grape varieties that we're working with today. I don't sleep, I just think.
But, it makes sense to me given your background studying history, someone who often looks at the past is also the person who sees history as something that is being created in the present and who looks to the future as well. So it makes sense to me as someone who thinks a lot about history. It's just turning that coin over and looking also at the future that you would be thinking these ideas. Dan, what character trait do you think you possess that has made you successful?
I like to bring people together. So whether it be a party, a dinner, or an event, I just like to bring people together who have interesting point of view and appreciate similar things and like to have a good time. I think I've always been good at, hosting and throwing a party, or hosting a tasting, or a seminar, a salon series that I started at Larkmead a couple of years ago called the Salon at Larkmead, and bringing smart people in the room together to talk about what I've deemed the future of Cabernet. And we've talked everything about climate, to style, to price point, to distribution. So we're continuing to have this conversation. I have a knack of being, just outward facing and bringing people in.
It is true that an invitation to one of Dan Petroski's parties is just about the invitation you definitely want to get in the Napa Valley. So, Dan, thank you. And our full interview with Dan is on winespeed.com's People to Know page. Check it out. You'll love it.